Hi, Team Absolution fans. Is your favorite card on TCG Player sold out? Let's talk about that. Hey Team Absolution fans, welcome to the Team Absolution discussion. I'm joined today with the Irish God, Keith.
Hello everyone.
And today, we're not angry. We're just disappointed. Buyouts. It's a very controversial topic. People have differing opinions. A lot of those opinions are wrong. But let's have a discussion on it and not an... I know you're probably waiting for a rant, but you're not getting one. So sit down, buckle in, because we're educating you.
You didn't ask for it, but you get an education today. You're going to learn today.
It's free. It's not a lesson, though, because I don't have the whiteboard. Whiteboard's over there. So, Keith, buyouts. Sure. I think about it from an economic perspective as also from a community perspective.
Okay.
There are those that suggest that buyouts are good because it sells product. While I agree with the statement, it only sells product derivatively speaking.
I'd be inclined to say the same.
Yeah, because product is sold to produce the singles, but a single buyout doesn't necessarily mean more product is going to be sold.
Yes.
Right? So let's start with that. So what are your general ideas about buyouts?
Okay, so just on the big umbrella, I guess,
actually,
of buyouts. How do we...
let's describe what a buyout is, just in case people don't understand. New to Vanguard, whatever. Okay. They don't know what we're talking about buyouts as far as the secondary market goes.
Sure. So there's related specifically, because a buyout is related specifically to the secondary market, is that if we go on, let's say, just TCG player, because that's a good kind of meeting point for a lot of different sellers that use for selling cards, vendors for selling cards, excuse me, is that, let's say one day I'm really looking for Belial. It's a popular crate right now in Shadow Paladin, and I really want to get my playset, but I go on TCG Player to discover that there are none there. The regular price seems to be about $20, I checked the last 2 days ago, and there's only one sitting there at $80. I'm like, well, this doesn't seem very right. I start to scratch my chin and say to myself, and what's happened is a buyout. All the Belial, there was 20 there the other day, and now there's one at a ridiculously marked price. So, I think...
Now, I think we can differentiate between what I want to call natural buyouts versus speculation buyouts. Okay. Because some of these, I mean, some buyouts are going to happen. Buyouts are natural to a certain degree because there are only a finite amount of cards, and some cards, not all cards created equal, some cards created than others. Sure. So... Like, for example, like a card that's been bought out and hard to find on TCG Player is like the Grade 4 Eradicator, Limit Break Enabler. Or not the Grade 4, the Limit Break Enabler for Eradicators.
Oh, Egg-Helden Dragon Kid.
Egg-Helden Dragon Kid. When I was trying to find some for you the other day, there were only 2 left, and they were like $3 a pop.
That was sad.
So, like, I don't think anyone went in there and bought out all of the Draco Kid, like, I'm gonna screw this Keith guy, and buy all these Limit Break 4 enablers. So
puts on tinfoil hat,
waits for the world to burn down around him. Okay, so I want to talk about more specifically is what are the problems when people jump in and buy out cards for the purpose of hyping the value, flipping cards essentially. Okay. In a mass buyout form. To me, from an economics perspective, it's not all that different from like price gouging because it's essentially what you're doing. Yeah. So you're like buying all this in order to increase the price and then flip it for value. Yeah. So I have a problem from an ethical perspective, but you know, it's also, we both can agree that it's hard to differentiate what a natural buyout is. I don't think it's that hard, but you could argue that it's hard to actually figure out what's different between a natural buyout and a not buyout. Yeah. Usually a non-natural buyout will happen after the day of the spoiler. Yes. Like that's very true. The new Riviera was released. At the time of this recording, the newest Riviera was released. The next day, all the Rivieras are gone. What an interesting development. I wonder what sparked this.
I never would have guessed it.
So what's wrong with buyouts?
Well, that's a whole can of worms to open up, isn't it?
I think that's what we're talking about here.
Very true. Very true. So I think the first place to start with buyouts is how it affects Bushiroad as a company, because that is where we get Cardfight Vanguard as a game. And so buyouts are an interesting case because it doesn't at least for Bushiroad itself, it is at best a net zero, in my opinion, for the company. And then at worst, a big negative for them. Because they don't see any of the profits that happen in these exchanges. Like when, you know, if I'm going here and there's Sneaky Keith coming into the TCG player market and I decide, ooh, that Riviere, I'm going to buy 80 Rivieres and try to flip them all. That Bushiroad's not seeing any of this. They've already sold their product for whatever set Riviere was in. And so none of this money translates back up to Bushiroad itself. So it's not going to be like, oh, we're going to produce more product now as a result of this. So I think that's the first big point of contention, in my opinion, over the thing. I don't know if you agree or...
I think, so I want to open this up a little bit because I absolutely agree with you to a point. Okay. But the economist in me is like, no, you got to debate this. Okay. Because it all depends on what the card is to a certain degree. Because sometimes, and this is what people are saying, like why it's a good thing, but they're not thinking in your perspective. They're thinking more my perspective. So a set releases, set 11. Bullet Owls also sell out at like $20 a pop. This makes people want to go back. This drives demand for the set. So people go buy more set 11 to open more set 11. Now set 11 gets all sold out. The first printing gets sold out. It used to happen back in the beginning of GBT days. Like GBT 01 I think was completely sold out. GBT 15, GBT 16 was sold out, I think. And then they had to make a second printing. So like that helps the company because like if a card is so hyped up, but at the same time it's not the price that's driving that or buyouts. It's just the natural goodness of the card. So there's multiple ways you could debate that, but the point is you're saying like if a card is bought out on TCG Player and it creates an opportunity of arbitrage for like speculators to go buy more product. Hope you rip the Bilal or whatever the card is. Sell it again. But that means once you bought the box, whether you pull the Bilal is indifferent to Bushiroad. They've made the profits off of that. Which will invite a design. Now, where we get into a dangerous level is the fact that Bushiroad believes in legacy support and they do reprint, but they don't reprint everything. So maybe Riviere will get a reprint. Maybe it doesn't. But the point is, Riviere is sold out and they're not going to reprint the EB it came in.
No, that's for sure.
So Bushiroad's definitely not seeing any money from that particular instance. But we're so the entire burden is passed on to us, the players. Because there's no way Bushiroad can get us out of it. Whereas like if it were something from a recent set, Bushiroad could theoretically make a second printing, which will flood the market with more cards. Which will lower the price. But yeah, so I just want to differentiate because like I agree with you when it comes to legacy support, which is a lot of cases where these like giant mass buyouts will happen. But cards like Bilal, but then again, like I don't think anyone was going in and specking buying all the Bilals for $20 a pop and then like trying to flip them for $80.
That's a risky spec, to be honest. When you're specking on $20 cards, I mean they do it in Magic and other things like that. But for Cardfight Vanguard, I don't know.
So that's number one. So continue. I cut you off because I want to open that up a little bit.
Okay. Kind of continuing on from there, I think the other big player in the speculation market for this, because now that you brought that up, that kind of made me think of it, is that the casual player, so let's say yourself, Jose, that you decide, you know what, you want to make a little bit of money. This month, you know, Jose's been a little down on his luck, and he's like, I want a good win.
I gotta pay rent.
Rent's coming in, he's feeling a little sweaty under the arms, he's ready. Is that, you know, you think, we've seen, let's say, just before set 10, we saw a Blau Kluger looking unit. And decides, well, that likely looks like support for the Blau Kluger archetype for Nova Grapplers. And it was something that had actually been asked for a long time. And so Jose goes on then and decides to buy some Galaxy Blau Krugers or something like that. And then all the Galaxy Blau Krugers disappear. Because you think that's going to be the card that's going to be the one. Because at this point, and this is an interesting thing with buyouts as well in Cardfight Vanguard, is there is I don't know, I guess I like to call it the hype buyout that occurs. That we see something, it could be as general as an image, like Nouvelle Vague was in the Legend deck, that all that was shown was just, this looks kind of like Nouvelle. Nouvelle disappeared from there, because all the hype just bottomed out. We had no idea what it did. if it was even related, if it was going to synergize at all with the unit, but it was just gone.
Even if it doesn't make any sense, because like, it was going to be a grade 4, like for Novell in particular, I remember like it was a grade 4 in a legend deck.
Yeah.
There was no way it was going to require anything involving Novell.
Yeah.
Like there was, because there wasn't a Novell in the deck.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't, the grade 3 was clearly Overlord.
Yeah. So I think that's like a great example of just like crazy hype buyouts. But going back to the original point, I digress now, is that now all the Galaxy Black Cougars have disappeared. And Jose is sitting on 80 Galaxy Black Cougars. What does he do now? Would you be able to flip all 80?
Probably not.
Yeah. As a casual person, I find it hard to try to engage in these sort of buyout things, even though a lot of people try to do, which I think just ends up as a whole hurting the community. In that now you are just sitting on 80 Galaxy Black Cougars. You have no idea. It just ends up back at a store and then just kind of gets back onto the market. So it's just disappeared for a while. No one has access to the cards now because you're just sitting on a mountain of Galaxy Black Cougars. So what do? I don't know if you have any things to say to follow up with that. But
well, I'm gonna give you a flip from the casual.
Sure.
So we talked about it being dangerous from the community.
Yeah.
Think about the burden that is put upon a new player in it, because if we look, so it was spoiler alert. Me and Keith don't like buyouts. That's our opinion. That's what you're waiting for. There it is. I'll see you in the next video. You got to think about it from a new player's perspective.
Sure.
Like, Bushiroad should always be trying. The game community should be always trying to grow.
Yeah.
That's the only way games grow. Is with more people. So you have to be at least understanding to new people.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is that with these buyouts, the burden of entry for a new player becomes much more expensive and much more difficult to find.
Yes.
So like
for sure.
Now, like, because not every player has a community he's ready to go to. Sometimes they're trying to build a community at the local game shop. Sometimes they're the first player, but sometimes they do have like a small community, but they're just getting in. But he has no access to access to the secondary market as far as like, oh, let me see your binder. Oh, all you have is garbage. Like, like I need these specific cards. Like, I want to play blouse.
Yeah.
I want to play this. I want to test this, but I don't have access to it. They're like, well, his only choice is TCG player, which is really like one of the best. Or Amazon is one of the best conglomerates for.
I got some pretty good deals on Amazon every now and again, but
they don't know how to price cards.
No, they do not.
They vary. What I'm saying is that if this player is a good TCG player, all of them are sold out. He's hit one barrier.
Yeah.
So now he has to find the person that these people, the person who's trying to flip them, and then this person is trying to flip them for an incredibly inflated price because. Oh, but there's new support coming out. It's totally worth this. Like, dude, we don't even know what that skill does yet. Yeah. And then when the skill drops, a lot of cases when the skill drops, if the skill isn't just straight gas, you'll see an immediate tank. And now this guy's sitting on 80 and he's trying to dump him. Yeah. And that'd be a good time to build the deck. But at that point, you probably see the skill in the stride and you're like, well, this is worthless.
Yeah. Which happens more often than it does not. Right. Not everything is just a straight banger.
Poor blouse.
Yeah. Single tier.
So the point is like, as far as I can, this commute that precedence of like buying out cards immediately when they're spoiled creates a very dangerous community for a new player.
Yes,
very risky endeavor because now it's like, man, I got to drop $200 to play this like tier 3 deck or something. Like I don't want this.
Yeah.
I'll go play Graveyard Rush.
Yeah, spend like what, $30?
$30.
Have a competitive deck that's won worlds and won all this stuff.
So that's from a new player perspective.
Okay. To build upon that, actually, because I'm really glad you brought that up, there's something I want to mention with the whole new player thing. I'm going to kind of create one of my other scenarios now, because I think we love to be doing this video, is that I'm coming in as a new player, you know, hear me wide, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, got the little cap with the propeller on it, and like ready to play some Vanguard. It's my first time here. And let's say for whatever reason, there's a buyout that occurred on Galaxy Black Cougar, and I have one. Okay? And so now my Galaxy Black Cougar is worth from $2, it's now worth $20. Just gonna throw out a number.
Right.
Okay? And that's great. Now I can get $18 if I sell it, let's say. Or something like that. Do you think that's a good thing? Is that for me as a player, as a new player, to have this, like, let's say, extra cash in my hand if I decide to just drop it off? In terms of the buyout in general.
Theoretically, I think so.
Okay.
Because you have more cash and you can buy more cards, theoretically.
Okay.
I feel like you're about to counter me.
No, I'm not. I agree, because that's one half of the two sides of what I wanted to say. And that's, it's a good thing. It's cash in hand to have something like that. And cash is usually a pretty good, useful tender, or so I've heard, in the economy and stuff like that. But the other side of stuff that I see with it is that, let's say I really wanted to play BUYOUts, and now I'm completely priced out, even though I had one initially, but now there's no way for me to pick up the other 3.
Yeah, because we're talking margins now.
Yeah.
Whereas like before, marginally, the deck, the deck was at 3, the card was at 3, which I think it was at one point.
Yeah, sure. It was at $3.
If it was at 3, it only cost me $9 more to finish the deck. So pulling, let's say like I walk into a card shop and they had a little box left of that set, the EB that BUYOUts came in, and I ripped the Galaxy. And looking at that, and one week I'm like, oh, maybe I'll build BUYOUts, and it's like $3. I'm like, oh, I can pick the other 3 up for $9, and then like who knows what? The deck is already like substantially cheaper than what I'm about to say. Then a week later, I'm like, all right, time to start picking up BUYOUts. I'll pull up my TCG player, pull it up, and it's $20 a pop. Now. It's like, well, no, I'm not going to build BUYOUts. And maybe he'll sell it or maybe he won't. But the thing is, here's the thing. Here's another problem that more veteran players have. So let's kick up the skill set. Instead of being a casual player, it's now us. More veteran players.
Or so we like to think, yeah.
We keep track of spoilers. Let's say hypothetically we were gone for a week. And I came back and we do this all the time, though. When we look at a card and we're like, wait a minute. This card is $15. Why?
Yeah.
And then that changes the way we think. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's not a good thing. Because that means that we're holding on to cards instead of like trading them in the natural market, which is a lot of problem because people buy these 80 cards or whatever. I mean, that's a broad number. People buying a lot of these cards to buy it out, and then they're holding on to them, hoping that the value will continue to rise, like a stock. But like cards aren't stock. They don't fluctuate that often, and they won't hit that high.
Yeah.
Like usually when a spoiler is announced, the price will spike. But the problem is, I want to see, maybe we could one day look at it, I want to see the data of sales after a spike like that. So like obviously the sales will spike because people are buying it out at $3. But once the price goes up to like 20 or something, who's making the purchases? Or who's trading? Of course, it's hard to see the trades because like, there's no real like way to track trades like that.
Yeah.
But I would argue that it's actually not that great of a bounce. And then these people end up with like 20 some odd Galaxy Ball Cougars, and then they hold on to them still, hoping that the price will go back up when the cards release. And now there's product that's no longer fluctuating in the secondhand market, and you want cards to be flowing freely at the market price that they are, but instead you're just holding all this capital. I'm speaking in economics terms like capital, I mean like the cards itself.
Yeah. I actually think that's a really good point, Jose, as well. It's something that I want to bring up to the viewers as well as a whole with something like this to kind of warn you guys when you see videos, talking about BUYOUts and stuff like that, is that at the end of the day, what we are arguing on, and we're going to try to back this up a little bit more than we usually would, is that what we're seeing is observations of what's occurring on the market.
Right.
That it's not, we don't have definitive causation that A is causing B. BUYOUT of something is caused by X, so on and so forth. I mean, we have a good indication of what's occurring with stuff like this. But then if someone's trying to tell you, oh, BUYOUts are this because of this, well, ask them, well, why? Why is that the case? Just put source question mark on what you're trying to say. Because, it's important. You need to be able to say that, what we're trying to show you is these are observations at maybe correlations, what we're seeing. But people try to argue points like this, that like this is fact, known fact of what's occurring with BUYOUts. And I think that's an important point to kind of sit back and question it yourself when you're looking at stuff like this.
Absolutely. So and on to that, you're probably wondering now, there's some guy telling source. In the description, you'll find 1 to 3 articles that Keith has found from peer-reviewed sources. This is like academic research.
Yes.
It's been done on the study of BUYOUts as it regards to, I think,
it's management BUYOUts.
Management BUYOUts. Yeah. Which I think get into it has some of it transfers, some of it isn't. Which is why we're putting everything with a grain of salt.
Yes.
BUYOUts can sometimes help the community. I'm not saying they are, but they also come with a lot of negatives. And you have to realize that these negatives sometimes do outweigh the positives.
Very true.
That's even ignoring the fact that it sets the community ablaze as it's just a controversial topic. People feel jaded when they want to buy a card and can't. That's a simple fact. I mean, that's true about everything. The Nintendo Switch, any other kind of video game that gets sold out or product that gets sold out, mostly from Nintendo, because Nintendo always like shorthand supply. So people feel jaded when they can't get what they want, or they have to pay an extreme additional premium on it. I mean, selling a $3 card at $20 is like it's more than 500%. It's almost 700% markup.
Yeah, which is insane.
And that's suggesting that the card is 7 times better than it was before, roughly. You know, it's suggesting that it's a lot better than what it was, and sometimes it's hard to justify that. Especially when all you have is an image. Like, and the problem is if you went to somebody and talked to them and said like, you know, like if I saw somebody like, why'd you buy out all this card? It's like, would you see that image? The price is going to go up. Their full intention is to flip it.
Yeah.
Which is like, fine, I have no problem with people wanting to make money. But like...
Yeah, you will never need 80 of a card, ever.
There are better ways to make money with less risk than buying out 80 Block Cougars.
Yeah.
or buying like... Vanguard spec is... If you want to speculate, feel free. But you are in the wrong game to make money off of spec.
Yeah, it is way too high risk and way too volatile.
Yeah, we're talking
to do
like,
something like this.
You're better off in the game. Like, I mean, there are better games. I don't want to like list better games and then make Vanguard play the game. But I mean, there were much better games to be playing if speculation was your goal and to make money off of that spec.
Yes,
much better games with lower volatility. I mean. Up until recently, Vanguard had a set release every month. That means your life would have to be constantly checking prices and doing buyouts. And like outside of vendors, I don't know if like the average player or even a high level player has the ability to monitor enough to where they would actually see substantial gains. Small specs every now and again are fine. Like, you know, buying 4 because you say like I might play the deck, and then seeing the card like go up and then flipping it, that's very different in my opinion from an ethical standpoint. But when you're buying 20 of a card in order, and also you got to remember, you buying the 20 bit of the card is exactly what's inflating the price. So you're gouging the price itself instead of the card's merits is what's doing it. You see a sparkle of support or something like that. Sometimes to take it even more extreme, it's just when Bushiroad announces.
Like Riviera support.
This set will support ancient clans such as Eradicators. Buy every Eradicator ever. And that's dangerous because we know nothing. And you've just taken this, you've completely inflated all these cards' prices, but as far as the game has not changed. And so that's a very dangerous way to be where prices can fluctuate. And that's what makes the game so volatile. If these buyouts didn't happen in such a rampant number, the prices of the game for entry, for sustainability, and even for spec would be more stable, less volatile, and you'd incur less risk. I think we've touched on it a pretty decent amount, though.
Yeah, I think I have 2 last things I want to mention really quick at the risk of being, you know, rambling at this point with stuff. Is that, first of all, with the... I know you mentioned really quickly about the papers that we were going to show and the management buyouts. And, you know, there is some limited generalizability to what we're discussing with the management buyouts as it pertains to the product buyouts that are occurring. But I think one great example that is shown in there is that they show that for the businesses that get bought out and under new management, there is great short-term benefit that occurs as a result of the buyout. But in the long run, it is not a good thing, by and large, for a lot of the meta-analyses that occurred for these companies. And I think that's actually quite applicable to what happens in Vanguard, in that it's a great thing. And I don't want to now, as a result, because I feel like in and of itself, we've been like demonizing the vendor side of stuff for this, which I think, you know, we shouldn't, I want to say that we shouldn't be doing that, is because the vendor is, you know, a store, and a store is where you play the game as a player. And so they still need to be able to make their own money and being flipping cards. And so I think that's just one other important point I want to make based off of that. But that in the short term, going back to the papers, buyouts, you know, they cause an influx of money and cards are moving. So you see some sort of like short-term economic benefit as a whole, let's say, for the stuff. But then in the long term, you now have, you know, reduced accessibility of cards. Players are priced out of what they want to do. I suppose that's in and of itself, reduced accessibility. And just not a good thing overall. It starts to become, now it's trending towards a negative.
And so it affects the longevity of your game.
There you go.
I mean, that's true about, like, think about it, like you said with the management thing, but like, you're taking a hit for the short term, but like, the overall longevity of where things are going to go. And I think that's a whole other topic we could talk, because like so many people are wondering, is like, Bushiroad a dead game? Da, 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 da.
Oh,
well, I mean, you have to take this and look at it and say, like, what are we doing now, and how does this affect the game's lifespan?
It's one piece of the entire puzzle that is the game of Cardfight Vanguard. And the last point that I want to bring up with this is that a player that says that hates the buyout, let's say I'm just the grumpiest player in the world, and I'm really pissed, that I think a great example is Lou that got buyout. Because this one I think is an interesting exception to the rule, kind of a what are we talking about, in that Lou was $1 card for like a straight year. If you wanted to play it, you had ample time to pick up 4 Lou's for probably less than $4. Right. And now you're sitting there just being like, home. Now I can't buy it because they're like $15 a piece, really crazy, which, you know, is a little bit ridiculous. But there is also still opportunity. If there's something you want to play, pick it up now and just sit on it. You only lost like $4.
Yeah, I mean,
that's 4.
It all depends on like the value of the card, obviously. Like, you know, if you want to play like $15 cards, you might like not. We might want to wait and see what's happening. Sure. But like, definitely, like if you like, I might play blasters at some point eventually. Yeah. And you walk in, you're like, oh, $1 for Lou, still cheaper. Like, come on,
it's a little pricey. It's a little pricey.
Like, yeah, but that also isn't like the intelligence of the. I mean, we're talking about a card game, so like you have information about what cards are good and what cards aren't. Like, in my mind, the Lou situation is an exception also because like, you have to really sit down and think, how can this card get worse?
Yeah.
It can't. It can only get... There are cards that are at bare minimum are good.
Yes.
So like it can only get better with time. Mana. Mana was a good card, could only either get phased out completely or get better with time.
Yeah, totally agree.
But it's the one or the other. Like, see what I'm saying? It's either like it's like people aren't gonna play Revengers anymore, or the card's going to continue to be amazing. Yeah. But there wasn't like it's going to fluctuate in skill set. B not. The card's either going to be good or it's going to be better.
Yeah.
Lou, Flogel Crit. Like the Flogel Crit is like the perfect example because like there's no world where the Flogel Kit gets any worse. So long as Blaster Blade, the key card that started Vanguard, is in the game, Flogel will maintain its use.
Yes.
Lou even more so because he can use more blasters. So as long as blasters exist in the game, Lou will be a good card to run.
Yeah, and I think one last thing we're bringing that up is that the deck was tier 1 as well for the longest time. And those things were all like dead ass cheap for what you needed. So like, I don't know, I got nothing for that one.
Everyone has a part to play, but discussions like this are what opens the lineup to really engage in a community discussion without yelling, with what we're trying to do. Toxicity is already rampant enough in a lot of card games, and discussions like this at a very abrupt level can help. And so let us know what you think in the comments. Buyouts good, buyouts bad, what you like about them, what do you like about them? As always, Team Absolution is coming back with more awesome videos. This is the Irish God and the Captain signing off. Peace.